Hey, everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 418 for Wednesday, June 30th, 2021. My name is Russell Frost. I am the host for this week's adventure in advanced tech mobility and sustainable energy. And yes, look at this amazing panel that we have every week. Don't take them for granted. You understand me? Do not take them for granted. These people are here. So thank you. Let's do some introductions and get this show on the road because we've got a lot to talk about this week. My co-host and friend in the only place normally the only place hotter than mine. This week, however, she might not have that title, but nonetheless, she does remain Georgia McKenzie.
Hey, everybody. And, we're not doing quite as well as the Pacific Northwest up there, but we are in our 100. So, yay, 100 season. Today is relatively cool at 91. And I really hope everybody, joking aside, is staying safe up in the PNW because you guys were never meant to deal with those kinds of temperatures with this kind of power.
No. Well, and speaking of slowly cooking egg on their sidewalk, our friend in the Pacific Northwest, who's probably not out cooking breakfast on the sidewalk, but he's probably making mint with his solar array, Mr. Patrick Connor.
Hello. Yeah, it has been hot here, and we will talk about that in the show today. I have my brother lives in Phoenix, and it was officially hotter here in Portland than it was in Phoenix. If you live in Phoenix, you expect it, right? Yeah, in Portland, not so much. Yeah, I'm lucky that we have air conditioning, but our poor little air conditioner could not keep up. The temperature still just kept creeping up throughout the day because it's not sized for this 111, 115 Fahrenheit stuff. Not at all.
Ooh, that's horrible, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, he is our live stream engineer and the master of his own supercharger YouTube channel, Mr. Casey Green.
How's it going? We also got a taste of that heat. I had to change shirts because it was getting a little warm between shows. It's a Cybertruck shirt. I injured my hand making the video for you guys. It's on the editing deck right now. I'm just doing the captioning so that those folks that are not as blessed with the hearing can also enjoy the show. That'll be up after this show.
Well, do be sure to see that if Casey's putting his blood into the videos.
No blood on screen.
No blood.
I did injure myself.
Yes. No danger of body fluid contact, but nonetheless, he's bleeding so that you can be entertained. And speaking of bleeding so I can be entertained, he is the master of the Waterloo Region Electric Vehicle Association, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
That has to be about the worst intro I've ever
That really hurts, Mark.
You were really stretching to get coherent.
I totally deserve it. I totally deserve that.
I wanted to ask Casey how he's going to get those closed caption notes in with a busted hand.
Oh.
I have a little AI assistant, but it has trouble with me sometimes, but it does better than YouTube does. If you saw any of my original videos.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, welcome, everyone.
Thank you, sir. And last and certainly not least, our friend in a place that isn't crazy hot, isn't on fire, doesn't appear to be in danger of an imminent earthquake. Lovely Boulder, Colorado. He is the founder and owner of Boulder Hybrids. Mr.
Yes, glad to be back. This week is pretty normal June weather, so I'm happy to be here.
Yay! And we're all going to meet at Harbor Freight after. No, I had to go there.
Is the border open yet?
Oh no, the North Dakota National Guard, it won't let anyone in.
No, we don't want Mark shot. We'll postpone the meeting.
There we go. Absolutely. Well, our first story this week is going to be introduced, and I guess maitre d', she's the conductor. So Georgia has a little thing about an auto company that kind of stepped in it this week.
So you may or may not have heard that there has been, back when we had our little insurrection incident on January 6th, a number of companies said, hey, you know something? overthrowing a democratically elected president and preventing the peaceful transfer of power is a little bridge too far to get donations from us anymore. We gotta draw the line somewhere. Um, well, for a number of companies, they kind of say that after the brouhaha died down, let's just give some more money back to them. What's a little insurrection between friends? You shouldn't be surprised by that because that's what companies do. If you take any attention off of them, they're going to go back to trying to treat what's going on in this country as just business as usual. But a name jumped out and surprised a whole lot of people on the left. Toyota. You know, the people who make the Prius. The Prius, which is one of the more maligned, more, you know, just like mocha lattes or whatever it is, they call us Prius driving, latte drinking liberals, but Toyota is giving money to people who participated in, or at least would not certify the election, and had given speeches in support of the insurrection, and in one key case, is suspected of having some level of hand in organizing the insurrection. And I am talking about Representative Andy Biggs from
Andy
Arizona. Now, Toyota didn't give a lot of money. I'm going to be straight about this. One thing that people often conflate, usually just in trying to attack a candidate, and that comes from either the left or the right, it doesn't matter, is they conflate the donations of individuals with donations from companies or PACs funded by companies. This is not the case. In Toyota's case, this was definitely donations by Toyota itself directly to, in fact, avoiding donations to organizations like the National Republican Congressional Committee, which I thought was interesting because that would make sense. This was donations directly to members or leadership PACs, but not to the actual National Republican Congressional Committee and National Republican Senate committees, which are the organizing bodies of the party. And it's $56,000. Representative Andy Biggs was the biggest donor. Now, good people, I own up to being a flaming liberal socialist type because it's awesome. Thank you. And the truth of the matter is, though, you can donate to whoever you want, even a company. As long as we allow companies to donate, they can donate to whoever they want as long as it's legal. And I don't play games about, if you're an employee and you work for finance and you donate to a candidate, that means big finance is funding that candidate. That's nonsense. But I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Was there anything in Andy Biggs's record that says, hey, this is a good person for us to be a beneficiary of the largest portion of our donations to Republicans? And I looked throughout his entire congressional record with brilliant things like the Defund National Endowment for the Humanities Act, the One Bill, One Subject Transparency Act, because it's too complicated for Mr. Biggs. Repeal the National Voter Registration Act, because you know what? Who cares if people are allowed to vote, right, Mr. Biggs? And condemning the attacks on Judge Amy Coney Barrett Act. Well, there was the 2 times the condemnation of Adam Schiff Act, because, you can't just condemn him once. He's like popcorn, do it twice. And then the Buzz Off Act, which is to prevent drones, because you can see Andy Biggs is a big thinker. I only found one bill that in any way could have remotely impacted Toyota. It is Bill H.R. 3419 of the 115th Congress, and that is the Fuel Reform Act, and it was published on July 26, 2017. And what it does is it repeals the Title IX Energy of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002, which authorized various energy programs that are administered by the Department of Agriculture and primarily provide support and incentives for renewable energy projects.
That part.
That
Toyota doesn't like that part.
part just led me to go, what the fuck, Toyota? This is literally paying money into the hands of people for whom some of your biggest vehicles and the most forward-thinking aspects of electric vehicles would be squelched. So that money, the sweet money you get to develop this, and all the tax incentives you get that allow people to purchase things, you are putting money into the hands of people who would effectively say, nah, no more of that. None for you. So,
Well,
it is
So-
rare you see a company where the executives, because this is an executive decision, are actively doing something that shoots itself in the foot, not just legislatively with these donations, but PR. This has gone over about as well as you would expect, because this is not what most people think of when they go out and they buy their renewable vehicle. A person buying a Prius right now has to contend with the fact that where are their donations going? They're winding up, their money is going into the pockets of people who said, hey, let's not do this peaceful transfer of power. Let's not recognize the election. Let's keep spreading lies. And while we're at it, let's write legislation that affects sustainability, including buying these EVs. So I gotta hand it to Toyota and to the PR persons who came out and said, well, it's not like we should let this thing bother us. I mean, which is essentially their statement. It was the most pathetic statement I've heard in a long time. Based on our thorough review, we decided against giving to some members who, through their statements and actions, undermine the legitimacy of our elections and institutions, but they did not follow up to specific thresholds for statements that crossed that line. Hey, you do you, Toyota, but this was a big fumble, and best of luck to Toyota's public response team, because I can see that they're going to be working overtime to try to correct this. This was a very bad choice. And for $56,000, I mean, that's really, it's a penny.
chump change for them.
It's chump change of a donation, and it was not worth the cost at all. You could have just said no.
That's
Literally.
one Toyota Mirai.
Yeah. You could have said no.
Or one Highlander or one Tundra.
Yeah.
The fallout from this, because the amount of people I've been seeing who've heard about this have just been like, oh, I was thinking of getting a Prius, or I was looking at I'm not going to buy a Toyota now. I'm going to go buy. But thank you, by the way. Tesla really should send them some flowers. Thank you very much for supporting our company, because they're going to look at somebody else. And I can't say I blame them. But that's my story.
I can't speak to the PR aspect of it, but perhaps they were trying to build a moat. I mean, they did develop the Prius over 20 years ago, and everybody else who doesn't yet have a hybrid, they're going to need a little bit of assistance, I guess. I don't know.
See that. Well, I can't see that helping, because at the end of the day, you're still donating money to a caucus, an entire caucus, that would be vetoing any support for your R&D for sustainable vehicles, fuel cell technology, the whole meal.
But nobody's buying fuel cells, and they don't want to make plugins. So,
yeah, which assumes Toyota cares about. Which assumes Toyota cares about selling anything other than ICE. Which right now,
it doesn't look like it.
The evidence brand new Corolla Cross, ICE only.
No hybrid. No plug.
Wait, there'll
No
be a
plug.
hybrid someday.
Eventually. I got passed by one, and it looked like it had an HSD badge, but I don't think it was. I think it might have been a little bit to fool you.
It's an interesting choice by Toyota. Good job, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has anything to say?
They're
I
all
just had
just
that
saying,
devil's advocate.
I agree with Georgia. Like, if they were going to make a donation, make a significant donation, because they're way more trouble for $56,000 than if they would have just said no. So
Yeah.
At least pick.
There.
I mean, if
give them
you
$1 million
at
or
least-
something.
Well, if at least okay, you're looking at the people they donated to, you could see that they had carved out something that was
Hey,
beneficial to the industry, because they're
We're
not
going to put a
do
plant
something
here, or we're going to make an
individually.
exception there. Yeah.
Right.
Nothing.
But nothing. I could find nothing. I could not find anything that at least led me to go, okay, this specific person, because it's the only one that I could find a clear donation record, because it was of note that he got the most money. But I couldn't find anything in this man's record that said, well, he's a friend to the industry. You could see why they don't. At least make it make sense. You're gonna weather a PR storm, make it make sense. But this is a nut job. I mean, his I did include a link in that should be with the show notes of his entire record in Congress, and it's not that long. And it is basically anti-abortion bills, condemning Maxine Waters and Adam Schiff, just the weirdest crap. And Arizona, you okay, baby? I mean, do we need to have a talk with you as a state on electing people with some levels of sanity? I'm just saying, this is not representing you well. But once I went through everything, I was just like, this guy has nothing of benefit to Toyota. Dudes, why?
But conversely, why are our politicians so freaking cheap to acquire?
Well, when you're a
Have you
whore-
met Andy Biggs?
Well, not necessarily him. I'm saying some of the other ones you can find that do some vile stuff for $200.
Yeah,
Paul Gosar?
yeah.
Louis Gohmert? I mean, this isn't the cream of humanity, arguably. Okay,
Humans are not sending their best. That's
Yeah,
all I can
we're
say.
we're not. Yeah, we're not. These are the people that the aliens just drop down low and go, no, fuck it, we're out of here, and they go to another planet. Okay,
I am always sure of that.
so. The quote that really killed me, and Georgia, I don't know if I missed it. I'm sorry if I did, but the Toyota spokesperson, when this first blew up, said, quote, "We do not believe it is appropriate to judge members of Congress solely based on their votes on the electoral certification."
Yes, that was their mealy-mouthed statement, and I just thought, wow.
Like, whoa, did they
That's
have
a
to, like,
really good lightning rod to use right there? That one.
that's, I mean, so, I mean, they
Tone
would,
and deaf,
yeah,
just like that.
doubling and down.
We also judge them on how much of our bidding they are doing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but they're not even doing the bidding. To me, the thing is, this would be the most successful strategy on handling this absolute clusterfuck. Would have just been to come out and say, "We are sorry. We resumed donations, but we did not take into consideration this aspect of their vote. From henceforth, we will no longer be donating to these people for this cause." And
And then all they have to do is use a pack and go through that and stick
Yep.
them still.
right, cheat and sneak just like normal, please. Don't
The
do
Autumn Alliance, there's lots of that crap that they feed tons of money to. They get the legislation passed they want.
There's lots of dark money groups. It is a surprising choice by Toyota to do something visible and trackable. I mean, a number of the names on the list I'm not surprised about, but Toyota, I think the reason why it became such big news is because it is a surprise that they're involved in this. It's just dumb. Oh,
And
well.
it's not even like they got some of the stars of the Q cult. They could have done that to if they were saying they're recruiting customers or recruiting whatever. They could have gone for like King Crazies, not this bid player.
Let's not give corporations any more ideas to just keep funding the crazy staying in power, please.
Yeah,
It's not-
that's
They will do it.
this isn't like an ideological boo-boo. Like, oh, we supported the conservatives and lots of liberals like us. This is like, no, you directly funded some wackaloons and for no readily discernible reason, which makes it like almost scarier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, the pictures of Mr. Toyota.
Oh no. Oh no. Well, anybody else have anything else to chime in on that? No? Fine. I don't want to beat it to death. So let's not for a change. How's that? Let's go to Casey, who has, well, I made a joke about it before the show, so I'm not going to make a joke now. Let's go to Casey, who has some insight on a certain Model S.
Ah, yes. Let me share you a picture from the Tesla Life Twitter feed.
Uh-oh. No, that guy will sue us. He's a litigious pain in the ass. I'll get a takedown notice before the show's over. Because he's on the show.
So Russell, people only sue people that have assets.
Oh,
cool. That has always been my defense. I got nothing. Go ahead. Come after me.
Fatality.
Last week we were talking about how easily the media can be led astray and how we need to be critical consumers of what we see, and how it goes a step further with, in this case, this guy is a TikToker. So he, as you can see from the photos, alleged that he had received a car that was what you see here is him removing the airbag module from the steering wheel of this the steering square, the yoke of this.
You're right. It's a Model S Plaid.
Of this Model S long range, which wasn't yet for sale at the time. And if you look closely, you can see there's a VIN number on the screen, right? There's a reason there's a VIN number on the screen is because it's in factory transport mode. It's not in service mode. This car's not yet gone through PDI, which is pre-delivery inspection. And in the video, you can see he's got his lunch on the seat, and we're sitting here trying to figure out, how did he receive a car like this? Well, the media was like, oh, well, it's unsafe. The airbag wasn't clipped in, blah, blah, blah. The few of us that are just Tesla nerds understood, by seeing that on the screen that, it hadn't been through service yet. And then it came back that now this guy says he's apologizing, but yet the original video, as we pointed out on the Tesla Life show, the original video is still up. So all the apologizing that he said he did seems to really just be in response to the fact that he was visited by the constabulary about his non-grata status at any Tesla facilities, such as the delivery center, where he was breaking and entering. Yes, it was unlocked, but he was not supposed. He was trespassing to be there and taking videos of the unreleased cars. And so, as Georgia was saying last week, when you're consuming your media, you need to be more critical of it. And everybody picked this up as if he was telling the truth and not going for TikTok clicks.
Yeah, any story that starts with something reported on social media says you should just pass over.
Yeah.
Basically. I mean, yeah, you got to be a critical consumer of everything. That's from TikTok videos, Instagram, Facebook posts, and Twitter. Handy dandy Google. Just Google, if you see a story, just Google a little bit and go from the results, hit the button for news, and double check to see if you can find anything that can corroborate these sources. This is just how you're going to have to conduct yourself with the internet these days, because it's just too easy now to.
And if they all are pointing at the one source, or they're all pointing and embedding this video, like if they're all saying Auto News said this and nobody else other than Auto News says it, or if they all have this guy in his stupid video in their frame, then that's not really corroborated. That's just multiple people saying the same thing about the guy's thing.
Mm-hmm.
Get two sources.
At least.
Sources to check the one story. Yes. So that's a total of 3. If one and then 2 different ones corroborate what's said, then you have something.
Yeah. So apparently this guy says he's got a Model 3 on order, and we allege that perhaps he is using the fact that he didn't take down the live video. Maybe he's trying to fund his Model 3 with that, or maybe he is morally bankrupt.
Well, I have a question though. I mean, when you do something like that, would Tesla be within their rights actually to say, you know what, here's your money back. No model.
Oh, they've done it before. That guy who was complaining about the shrimp at the Model X party, he got his Model X canceled. Here's your deposit, GTFO. His shrimp wasn't good enough at the party. No car for you. But even worse is, they have a super high powered legal department. I wouldn't cross them, especially with something like trespass. I mean, it's not.
They
worth
hired Mr. Burns' legal department from The Simpsons.
it.
It's
Release the hounds.
Right.
exactly.
Excellent.
Smithers. Well, speaking of Mr. Burns, no, I'm not going there. I'm not going there.
Not.
For our next segment, let's go to my friend, at least he used to be my friend, Mark Coughlin, for This Week in Tesla.
One bad transition too many.
At some point, he's just going to kick me. I mean,
Do you want to see an angry Canadian? Because you're about to.
Look out. So just touch on a couple stories. Of course, the Plaid Model S takes the title for Pikes Peak uphill race. They were able to qualify easily in their first qualifying run and reach speeds of 140 miles per hour climbing Pikes Peak, and then went on to the actual race and won that as well. So they won their class with the new Plaid Model S, and it was pretty amazing because they just received the car a couple days previous, and they stripped the car down, took it out to Laguna Seca, and did some more tweaks on it, and then took it out to Colorado. I believe that's where Pikes Peak. Is that correct, Paul?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Paul's got pictures
so,
from the race.
How many mods did they do to it?
All of them.
Actually, well, there certainly was suspension mods. This is the Unplugged performance car, and of course they're famous for the mods that they have in place for suspension, all sorts of tweaks.
Did they change like the battery capacity?
There certainly was a huge whale tail. There was a front spoiler that looked like a real race car as opposed to a normal front spoiler. So they certainly went through a number of different changes and modifications. But was interesting to see is that last year they were the ones that had the crash, put the car together, the Model 3 back together in 48 hours and ran it again. Didn't quite get the number one position. So this year they had something to prove, and they went out there with a brand new car and took the title home. So,
And it didn't get air.
yeah, and if you're interested in watching it, you can see the qualifying run through our Twitter feed at the Tesla Life if you want to view that. So go through the past posts this week, and you'll see it there. And you can run inside the car with Randy Prost, who ran.
And quick interruption, Mark. Sorry. For those of you who don't know Pikes Peak, the race I think goes from 10,000 feet to 14,000 feet elevation. It's about 12 miles, all uphill, lots of windy turns. But this is where EVs have a huge advantage because there's no air, no oxygen at that elevation compared to sea level. And ICE cars just can't cut it without turbochargers, superchargers, etc. So go EV.
Yeah. The car that got me into Pikes Peak actually had two V8s.
wow.
Next, Tesla is still outselling all other EVs in the United States, basically 3-1. So this was a Drive Tesla Canada article, and they were talking about how Tesla is still the choice out there with all the other EVs coming up. The Mach, the Ford Mach-E, the Audi e-tron. Number of choices that are still coming out, but Tesla still leads the pack at this point. Not a surprise when you see the number of cars on the road and how many cars are being sold. So that information for the U.S. Was just shared this past week. Another article of information that came out was sometimes Tesla is, they have, of course, during seasons where people are moving. So long weekends like the one coming up for the July 4th weekend. By the way, happy July 4th to you Americans. Canada Day is tomorrow. So everyone's going to enjoy a
Happy
long
Canada
weekend.
Day, Mark.
Yeah, thank you very much. And what we've got here is that Tesla has decided to do a bit of an experiment, it looks like. They are going to provide free supercharging at select California superchargers during the weekend of the 4th. So you can certainly go see the list. They seem to be superchargers that are in between cities, not ones that are actually in cities. And what they're doing is they're providing free supercharging on off-peak hours. So that they obviously, since they own the network of chargers, they know when a backlog exists or when one is being overutilized. And they've taken that information and designed a free charging schedule that will push some of this off the peak hours. And I would think that they're trying to reduce the number of cars that may be waiting during a busy period. So this is something, if you're in California, you may want to look into, especially if you're traveling over this long weekend. It will give you the ability to pick up some free supercharging depending on where you're going. But this is something that Tesla has done in the past, where they've increased the number of superchargers between cities. They've added more stalls at each one. And now this is another piece of the puzzle where they're trying to see if they can offload some demand based on offering the charging free of charge. So
speaking of them having the data, in a recent update, they added in a notification as you arrive to a station that is over capacity. There's a little clock icon on the screen, and it'll kind of highlight all the other stations that you can reach from your range. If they're brightly colored, you might want to take a small detour and not have to wait, depending on how long it says that you might be waiting in line.
Oh, exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. If you want to catch the other stories this week, please subscribe to the Tesla Life on our YouTube channel, or follow us during the week on our Twitter feed, the Tesla Life, and also on our Facebook feed, the Tesla Life New 101. Thanks very much. Back to you, Russell.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And do follow the Tesla Life on Twitter at the Tesla Life. And as he said, on YouTube, so you can see the show and get the news direct from the source, not from my sarcastic mouth. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I noticed that sarcastic one that came in earlier on Twitter from you, Russell. I'm keeping an eye on you.
Oh, that's why Mark's bleeding. It's his ears from listening to Russell.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the day when it says like all of a sudden I notice I haven't seen a Tesla Life. Holy shit, they blocked me. that day is probably coming. So my apology in advance. Speaking of apologies in advance, no, this another horrible segue. What's wrong with me today? Let's go to Paul, who has a story about, what we've already been talking about several times. Yeah.
It's kind of mind-numbing. Stories from The Guardian, which I guess is a UK-based publication, about global warming. And of all places, there's a small town called Lytton, British Columbia, which is in Canada, that yesterday reached 121 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than it's ever been in Las Vegas, for a place that's at the same latitude as London. And if you've ever been to London, it gets nice, but it never gets hot. Article also mentions that this week, Seattle hit a temperature hotter than it's ever been in Miami. And Patrick, in Portland, you hit 116, which would beat the hottest temperature in Houston by 10 degrees.
Wow.
So what the F is going on with the world's climates? And
perhaps we're throwing energy into this system.
Yeah, and you know, I grew up in British Columbia, and there is a shit ton of trees and forests. And when it's dry and you get heat, you get a spark, massive forest fires. It's just awful. So for those that don't think global warming is real, this is reality here. And I don't know if we can put the brakes on it at this point. and get things back to normal. But fossil fuels, all the scientists say, are a big part of why this is happening. So kind of a sad story.
Yeah, those cities that you mentioned that where you expect heat, Miami, Houston,
Miami.
Phoenix, Vegas. If you live there, you expect hot temperature and you're prepared for hot and you have air conditioning and those kinds of things. How many people in Canada do you think have an air conditioner? I'm going to guess it's not a big number. They're more likely to have a fireplace. You can stay warm in the winter than they are to have an air conditioner.
So, at least one rated over 100.
So getting hit with 120 degree Fahrenheit when you don't have AC, oh, that's horrible.
And you're not acclimated to it. I mean,
right.
I think in British Columbia, 250 people died of heat-related issues this week because, they're just not set up to deal with it. So it's pretty sad. Yeah. So let's hope that things cool down and people get some ice water up there and stop driving big ass trucks and switch to EVs and do whatever we can do to try and get the climate back to reality, because it's and this is just June. I mean,
I know
usually July and August are the hottest months up in that part of the world. So something's not right.
Well, this is a heat dome. It's been explained as that's kind of stalled over British Columbia, the coastal region, Seattle, all the way into the BC mainland. And it's being blocked by the jet stream, so it's not moving. It started to move just today, and they're expecting some relief on the coast today. But this heat dome, as they explain, is I just hope it doesn't become commonplace. Like you can deal with it for 2 or 3 days, but
once every 100 years. But we don't want to beat these records next year and the year after that.
No. But then we just had a record in the Arctic of 100.4 degrees. That place is supposed to be frozen.
Yeah.
The Great White North is going to be the Great Brown North. It's just going to melt.
Well, and the article also mentions that all the mountain snow and glaciers are melting, and now the rivers are getting flooded downstream, and it's just awful.
Yeah, and we still have far too many governments, because I'm not going to pretend that America is the best or the worst, because that's a bullshit issue. We have far too many conservative governments in the world that will not take climate change seriously, and a good portion of the populace worldwide that also will not make changes at all to their lifestyles to prevent this. I don't know what we're going to do, and it's going to exacerbate the problems of refugees from climate emergencies, potable water. I mean, I'm in California. We're in a drought. We're in a terrible drought. There's a wildfire going right now around the LA area, and it's going to be 4th of July, and these idiots cannot stop trying to blow shit up. Everywhere around me is a tinderbox.
Yeah, we've had a drought for 3 years. So to get hit with this heat wave after 3 years of drought, and now we've got the 4th of July coming up. If you're,
Utah has a drought. Governor Kristi Noemi was upset that Biden took the national fireworks display away from her state, and it's like, you dumbass, you're in the middle of a drought too. It's a national park during a drought.
Something that might help is perhaps if we vote in people that actually are going to live long enough to have to suffer the consequences for their legislation.
It's almost as if all elections, local and national, matter and have serious impacts. And if you don't participate and don't get over yourself and stop trying to vote in your best buddy that you have in your head and actually vote for people who can win, the people who take over because you haven't participated are kind of the shits and will destroy you and themselves like a big old nuclear radioactive elephant in a bomb room. That's really what they are.
120 degree elephant.
That's right. I mean, well, look, they really are. They are just we're not talking about just a little screw up. This is serious and it's going to be worse. And of all the, once again, you guys saw me scream this on Twitter. Why couldn't I have been in the future, born in the future, when we got over ourselves and stopped being so awful? Because seriously, it's all the awful is suddenly coalescing in form. It's reaching its final form. We've got awful Voltron of all of our bad decisions of the past 100 years forming up now. And I don't have a flying car, and I'm really upset.
The reason is that we need you right now. I mean, who else is going to teach folks how to listen to the media correctly? Who's going to teach them not to overreact to the politicians?
Oh, y'all don't listen to me anyway.
Maybe this is as good as it ever gets.
Or that. That scares me, but it could be that too.
Oh, if this is as good as we get, my God, we are in trouble. This is why the aliens lock their doors when they go past us. I'm just saying.
Click.
Okay, well, on a related story, let's go to Patrick about.
Canada.
No, this
Nope,
one I
no.
changed the story.
So this wasn't
speaking,
it. Stand by.
No, I switched it. Speaking of legislators, so in 2019, Oregon tried to get a cap and trade bill passed, and some of our politicians hated this so much that even though they didn't have enough votes to stop it, what they did have was enough that if they did not show up, that the state Senate would not have quorum and could not pass anything. So the state Republicans did a massive walkout in 2019 to prevent.
Wait. Is it a problem when the Democrats do it though? Sorry. Go on.
Yes. So that happened, and so this time around, there were a lot of changes made, but House Bill 2021 passed 16-12, and its goal is to have a zero carbon grid in the state by 2040. And so there's a lot of cool aspects to this bill. It has stages that they have to go through for emissions reductions: 80% by 2030, 90% by 2035, and then 100% reduction by 2040. And the interesting thing about it is it also allows, if states are not states, but cities within the state have their own goals that are more aggressive, that they can pursue those. They can work with their utilities that service their area to have more aggressive goals. It's a great step forward. It's one of the most ambitious plans in the nation, and we'll see how it plays out. But it's very exciting that we finally got something through. There were certainly still, reading through the article here, this is on opb.org, and there's one particular state representative who was complaining that his views were not considered in this, and that when they were debating it, working on it, he was not invited. That's because he was the one that led some of the previous opposition to things like this. So of course, you're not going to have the worst offenders in the room. You're going to try to appeal to the sensible, not the crazy. And it passed. So yes, this is exactly what a lot more of our nation, a lot more countries, a lot more pieces of our planet need to do. Is everybody can make their own personal decisions and try to live green, but getting policies in place that cause a bigger reaction. I mean, like you turn on your light switch. Yes, maybe you're paying for green energy, but that doesn't actually change what electrons come to your house. So a policy like this, where the utilities are required to not build new coal plants, not build new gas plants, anything else that comes online has to be renewable. That's going to make a change for everybody.
And to incentivize them to decommission the old plants and replace them with clean technology.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's funny that this passes like right as this the news of this heat wave was coming, and yeah, I mean, if you don't see how 1 + 1 = 2, I can't help you, but they are absolutely related. We are putting more energy in the system and getting crazy radical results from it because that's what happens to systems that are not in balance. And so we get this kind of crazy results. It's global weirding, not global warming, global weirding.
Warmest, coldest, all that at one time, on fire, flooded.
Right. Yeah. Droughts in places that used to get rain and vice versa. And then anytime you get what you're not expecting, you're not prepared for it. And how could you be?
Well, you could be,
Melting
but we don't
Canada,
take it.
frozen in Texas.
We don't take the threat seriously, so
Yeah, and the stuff that happened in Texas, they did have warning because this has happened before in 2011 and other years. So that was just greed, not completely unforeseeable. And hey, I want to give a shout out to we had all these problems. This heat here, everybody had their AC cranked all the way. Mine ran for 4 days straight. Using way more electricity than we normally do. Even with the solar panels, we were still sucking power from the grid, and the grid stayed up. So, it wasn't like other places where they get a little stress test and they fall on their face because everything was running on a shoestring to maximize profits. It was actually a reliable system. So kudos to my local utility.
Yay, utilities that don't turn your thermostat up.
Right? And while you're unconscious. I don't understand why these people are so opposed to clean air. I mean, I totally understand,
Right.
okay, if you don't believe that we are contributing to the changes.
You're a communist. Stop it.
What?
How much clean air do you
We're making it warmer. Why don't you want to smooth clean air?
This is just opposition for the sake of opposition.
Some of them are.
Partially, I spent a good portion of the day finalizing some rewrites because one of the things I was discussing with a client was that I appreciate what you do, but your language is all about benefiting others. It's very humanist, it's open, it's we do this thing and it doesn't just help us, but it helps the community and your social justice. And I hate to tell you this, but you got assholes in your group. And that's why you're having a lot of conflict right now. So I went back and I rewrote everything to work in asshole, where all the benefits were targeted to the individual and individuals within the group. And that's what we have right now. We're so terribly polarized because it has been very financially profitable for the media to work on polarization and keep things polarized. And it's been financially and access and power profitable for political groups to say just us we're the only real people. And we're getting to the point where it's like we're the only, not just we're the only real patriots, but we're the only real actual human beings in America in particular. We can see that ramping up, which is a very dangerous period. We can all go back and look at Rwanda for a very modern vision of where that kind of language leads up. But it makes sense to do this if you only have a vision for right now. And once we all adopted the greed is good part of the 80s, and that became a mantra, and that became something that we celebrated. And I blame all you older people because I was a little kid and I was not watching that movie. So shame on you, grandma and grandpas. But once we adopted that and put that in power electorally and stopped understanding that the commons, which also includes the airwaves, including this internet, by the way, this was all developed. Everybody mocks Al Gore for saying I invented the internet, but that's not exactly what he said. But the technology was publicly funded. All these companies on the internet, including YouTube, all are making tremendous profit off the development of the US government that came out of our tax dollars. So we created
it was originally called ARPANET because it came out of DARPA. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then TV, it's all public infrastructure that we rescinded control of back in the 80s. And it's been given over to people who have exploited the very simple need to find similarity to build community. And the fact that it's not the most easy way to manipulate you is not to make you fall in love. It is to get you mad. Getting you mad is the best way for me to manipulate you into doing what I want and thinking what I want you to think. And you will, if I get you mad enough, excise even things that benefit you from what you seek and desire to things that benefit me, because I have made you mad. You are now aligned with my vision and viewpoint, and now you are my tool. And unfortunately, media and politics has synergized in that way and are manipulating us in a really massive scale that's not just in America, but it is country after country. Multiple countries, I can tell you that there are problems with YouTube and the way how it's radicalizing the population. And the reason why we're seeing a rise of fascism and fascist right all over the place, although thank God, Marine Le Pen, you lost. Things like that, it comes hand in hand. It's a very unfortunate consequence that I don't believe we didn't start off to get to this point, but this is the point we're at. And that's why it's interesting that so much of our stuff today is talking, it's actually like my favorite pet subject, which is media criticism, and also where we are at right now, which is, this is an undeniable dangerous situation, because almost every corner of the US is facing some kind of crazy heat, crazy weather situations, and we've been having them going back into January. So we'll see what we see. I mean, but it does mean we have to stay engaged. There's just no other way for it. You can't relax anymore.
Yeah, we went from Australia on fire to global pandemic back to global
We're back at
weather
global
crisis.
pandemic.
Mhm.
And US potentially on fire if we don't practice sensibility with these 4th of July fireworks.
Mhm.
And there are too many people for whom this is a big part of their income, that they have to sell those fireworks to make it to the next season.
Yeah, like you said, mad or scared. And somebody put it a way that I really liked. They said that one political group is afraid that somebody will go hungry, and the other political group is afraid that somebody's going to get a little something extra that they don't need.
Or get the same as them.
Or get
Yeah.
the same as them, yeah, and not make them not special anymore.
Yeah. Get something they don't deserve.
Yeah,
Let's talk
you
about
don't deserve
deserving.
to have the same
Deserve.
level as I do.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to our last story. Casey has maybe some good news.
Maybe.
Maybe, please, for the love of God, just a little good news.
So our friends at Nissan sold their battery plant.
Oh, shit. Oh,
A couple of years ago. And we thought that was a bit odd, being that at the time they were the #1 electric vehicle manufacturer. I mean, you had Tesla and GM nipping at their heels at the time, but the #1 was still the Nissan Leaf, and it was a weird
And
move.
where was this battery plant?
Tennessee at the time.
Oh,
So it's not even like it was unionizing and they had to get rid of it or something. So it was a weird move, but the plant stayed exclusively producing for Nissan, so they didn't lose out. It was maybe just a shell game in the books. I don't know. But now they're looking at building a factory of their own in the UK. So perhaps they're starting to realize that if you were going to make a massive amount of electric cars, it might be nice to have a supply under your thumb rather than some contractor who may go for a higher
or they
bidder.
got some fat tax credits from the British government to do it.
Or that. So that's one of
But
the
you
things.
don't believe the free market will provide, Casey? Come on.
Well, I mean, it will, but do you want it at market price or do you want it at internal price?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Do you want to get it when you want it, or 3
Well,
years
yes.
later?
And,
I mean, a
certainly,
really good example is look at when the 2000, let's call it the 2nd gen Civic Hybrid and Toyota. So Honda was getting batteries from Panasonic, and they were really decent. And then all of a sudden, Toyota put in more money than what Honda was buying them for. And I guess Honda was cylindrical and Toyota was prismatic. But it was the same manufacturer. They had a limited amount of capacity for output. And all of a sudden, Toyota's getting the A batteries, and Honda is getting the B plus batteries. So most of your Honda
C
Civic
minus.
hybrids, yeah, C minus, yeah. So most of your Civic hybrid batteries didn't fail under warranty, but a lot of them failed right after.
The famous Danny Honda battery rant.
I was working for a Honda store, and mine died twice.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you know how baby I treated my car, so
All right.
There you go.
Well, and to do their factory in England makes sense because the value proposition for EVs is much more in Europe, where gas is $6-8 a gallon.
exactly.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
That
Well,
was
thank you very much, Casey, for that.
You're
I'm
welcome.
sorry. Did you have a?
No, that was all. I was like,
Okay.
hey, they're starting to secure them some batteries so they can make some battery cars, or at least hybrids.
It's certainly not a surprise seeing all the car companies that have announced battery factories in the last few months. I mean, it seems to be pretty clear the wind is blowing in that direction. Whether or not that's the final solution or the best solution right now, it's the best solution that everybody seems to have.
Better than
look-
better than hydrogen.
Yeah, I mean, look at Muskie. He's going around. He's building the 3 largest battery plants in the world, and is still trying to buy every spare output that exists. And so now he's fighting with the likes of Ford and everybody else to get every little extra battery cell he can get his hands on.
Yeah, that's why they have to build them. Tesla's sucking up everything else.
Right.
And the Chinese, don't forget the Chinese.
Yeah, didn't they just sign a big contract with Cattle?
Yes.
Oh
they
yeah,
did.
them. But I mean, the Chinese auto manufacturers are buying.
Geely and Cherry.
All
and
batteries as well,
Candy
yeah.
and- yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's a good direction for the industry that we like. Let's do some shout outs and go home. And panel, if you want to put your show title suggestions in the chat, I would love to see them. Same for you loyal folks out there watching us. If you have any show title suggestions that don't have my name in them, I welcome them. And I'm
Put some
shy.
rules
That's
on
why.
that.
No, there's no
You're shy.
rule. I'm just,
Yeah.
Russell's
No.
shy. Oh wait, I can't put your name in
Yeah,
it.
I'm shy.
That's the
I'm
best way
shy
to get
to-
suggestions of his name with it.
I'm the demure guy. Yeah.
Oh, please.
Are you arguing with me?
She called you out.
Ugh. Let's go. Let's go. Come on, Mackenzie. She'd
Don't
kick my
argue with
ass.
the
Okay, I've
unarmed.
seen her kickboxing. She'd kick my ass. Let's start with Casey because he always has stuff to say. Go, Casey.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I've got a video coming up on youtube.com/Casey Green. It's already ready. It just needs rendering and for me to finish the captioning, and it's only like 11 minutes long. So I'll be done tonight, and hopefully YouTube is also done with it tonight. If not, when you wake up, go to my channel, check out this video. Put a lot of effort into it, and I thought there were some funny bits as well. So take a look. The hint is cyber.
Oh, Cybertruck.
I thought he was showing off his shirt.
I was like, I got a shirt too, Casey. Okay, I mean,
I do not.
we're all wearing shirts. Look at that. We all have something in common. Yay,
But my shirt is the
us.
hint to the video.
Yay, us.
Wearing a dress.
Mr. Guzik, what's going on in Boulder?
In Boulder, beautiful weather. If you have a broken hybrid or EV, we fix them at boulderhc.com. And if you're looking for a used vehicle, boulderh.com. But our selection is pretty slim right now. There's not a lot of used car in the market. And if you're looking to buy a used car, actually, I would recommend waiting a few months till the supply catches up to demand, because you are going to have to pay a little bit of a premium right now if you need a car.
Or a lot of a premium on either new or used
Yeah.
cars nationally.
Yeah.
If you have to buy a car, you have my apologies and my sympathy.
I've heard from people that bought a used car 3 years ago, and dealers are calling them because they're so hungry for inventory. They're saying, we will give you what you paid for that car 3 years ago today to sell it back to us, because they have nothing to sell.
And they know they can make money on it.
And they'll mark it up and they'll resell it. So for some people that don't need their car, like, hey, shit, I got a car for 3 years for free. Why not take that deal?
Exactly.
But yeah, the market's all messed up. So don't buy a used car unless you absolutely need it.
Speaking of which, Paul, I sold my Prius for $32,000.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I feel like I should split some of that with you, but I'm not gonna. And that's a lie. Patrick.
Although,
Yes.
did we see that guy who was trying to sell his long-range Model S for $139,000 $50,000, which
Jesus
was $1 less than the Model S Plaid for his long range car. So a $50,000 markup, and he probably will get it.
No.
Yeah, probably.
No, I hope.
No.
And then I
hope
saw
not, yes.
on Bring a Trailer this week a limited edition Supra that sold for 88,000 last year. It sold for 74,000 this year. Oh yeah, I love seeing collectors take it in the shorts
Wow.
because that market's crazy. Just the collectors market is insane. So all those markets need to kind of cool off a little bit. Speaking of cooling off, Patrick.
Yes, hello. It is cooling off here. Finally, we yesterday was the worst of it, and today's a lot better. So my AC finally shut off after, like I said, 4 days running. I want to give a shout out to the Oregon legislation for getting this bill done. That is great news. I want to give a shout out to my local utility, keeping the lights on when I needed it most. And this is a cool thing. They did their first virtual power plant pilot during this. They turned on the batteries that we all have volunteered into their program, or are paid to put in their program. And as I hinted to last week, it didn't go exactly as they planned, and I blogged about that on carswithgorge.net. And then all of a sudden I get this email saying, hey, I saw your blog, and you're right, it did for your case, it did not go as expected. You're a power user and doing something that we didn't expect, which was islanding. So like right now it's 7 p.m. here, so I'm running on batteries because the electricity prices are higher from 3 to 8. So from 3 to 8, I run on the batteries instead of paying the higher peak rate, which is better for the grid because this is the peak time, and so I'm off grid, or islanding as they call it. Not only that, if there's we get solar until about 8 p.m. and so we're feeding all that into the grid during this time, so we're in negative load. And now they know that. They are making a software change. They said it might take a couple months, but to support the exact situation that I'm doing, where what they did was they asked all the batteries to output 2 kilowatt. And well, I was running at 6 or 8 kilowatt, and so they actually lowered mine. And so what they're going to do instead is to have this put out at least 2 kilowatt. So if you were doing less than that, it will go up to it. If you're doing more than that, it'll stay at that level. So that's a new feature they'll be adding based on what I blogged about, which I was like, what? Somebody reads my blog? That's crazy.
Someone from the power company reads your blog?
Yeah. Or it got someone who knew someone forwarded to them and said, this guy says you're not doing it right. And
someone who doesn't read their server logs.
Yeah, you're right. I don't. Yes, I couldn't find out directly. But so that's my shout outs, and thank you all. Have a good one. Stay cool.
Thank you, Patrick, very much. Let's go to Mr. Mark Coughlin, for whom I do not have a special introduction because I don't want to get my ass kicked.
You just missed it. Speaking of someone who's cool.
Mark, do you got an update on the hockey scores?
Montreal has scored.
No ice left
in the second period. So I'm going to be over to that shortly. But I wanted to share a good news story for people on the outside here. Just to let you know, 2 days ago, the government of Canada, the federal government, indicated that they would ban the sale of internal combustion engines starting in 2035.
Woo-hoo.
So that's for cars and light duty trucks. It's the move's not with controversy, but at least we've got a date and we're working towards it. So there are going to be penalties in place going forward for groups that don't sell EVs, and there's going to be more of a mandate. Before previously it was kind of like, well, there's a subsidy if you choose to pick it. They're going to develop some rules that there will be consequences to manufacturers that they do not sell EVs. So look forward to that.
Cool.
It's not all written yet. And of course, if the government gets voted out, it goes with it. But it is something that we're working towards.
Very
Like
nice.
Said, every election matters.
Yep.
Every office matters.
School boards on up.
Absolutely. And speaking of Georgia McKenzie, Georgia.
Everybody, thank you for sticking around with us this long. I hope you learned something. I hope you got something out of it. Once again, do not forget, you've been here this long. Hit like, hit subscribe. You want this good content in your veins. Don't forget to bounce over to Casey's channel. Hit like and subscribe because he's got all your video content. Then head on over to the Tesla Life because Mark is the source. He is the dude. He knows everything that seems to be going on in Tesla. And I can't figure out how he keeps track of all this stuff. So go on ahead, hit like and subscribe over there too. And while you're at it, bounce over to Patrick's blog, carswithcords.net, because he is writing good content on sustainability and solar power. A whole lot of cool shit for you over there with carswithcords.net. Thank you for being here, and I'm going to toss it back to Russell for our closer.
Thank you so much, Georgia. And as always, George is right. So I'll just leave it at that.
Tell my ex that.
I was gonna insult Patrick, but there's why. I've made enough enemies tonight. I don't need half the chat room wants me dead, and so. And speaking of chat room, hey everybody, thanks for being in the chat room. Derek, JT, Hockey Day, Zach, and I think that's everybody. Yeah. So right on. Thanks for being in the chat room. As always, I want to thank Michael Mannering for his amazing theme music. Visit him at manthing.com and buy a song, or you're going straight to hell, which next week I think is either Redding, California, or Portland. I'm not sure which one's going to be hotter.
It's in Canada this week.
It might be in Canada too. So some West Coast city that probably be on fire at some point. Yeah, you don't even have to die to go to hell anymore. Isn't that nice? Of course, visit us on social media at What Drives Us, Facebook.com/What Drives Us, YouTube.com/What Drives Us, at What Drives Us on Twitter. And of course, if you must go to the most accursed social media site on the planet, go to Instagram and visit us at What Drives Us Show. I hate Instagram. Okay?
Really, Russell? Tell us.
I fucking hate Instagram. But there's a bunch of stuff there. Speaking of a bunch of stuff, that exciting What Drives Us computer that some of you so generously funded just put up today the Derek Caveney interview. And you're like, who's Derek Caveney? Derek Caveney is the executive engineer on the Lexus Teammate program, their ADAS system. Very interesting 10-minute interview with him. Very soon I will have my driving with the LS500 with Teammate video up as well. We'll have some Ed Niedermeyer content for those of you who just love Tesla as much as I do. Interestingly enough, for the first 40 minutes of the show, we never mentioned the T word, and that's the best part. So tons of exciting new stuff. A lot of stuff from Toyota that's not going to be involved in politics, and I shot before them. But you will get to see me ask some embarrassing questions at some press conferences. They're like, why is the Corolla Cross just ICE only? And everyone got really quiet and moved away from me like I had COVID. I felt bad for a second, then I got over it. I want to say thanks to, bye, Paul. I want to say thanks to Paul for bailing quietly, Georgia, Casey, Mark, and Patrick. Thanks for hanging on. And of course, most of all, thanks to all of you for watching the show. Tune in next week and find out what drives us.
Stay safe. Stay cool.
Stay positive, test negative.